This was the motion that on 2/27/2015, me and my wife Lisa filed in the federal court, in the district court at 650 I Street in Sacramento for injunctive relief and for appointment of counsel from the governments in the United States, all levels, and their associates trying to hurt us and put us into unlawful slavery. And we can prove everything that's in here. We were even acquitted under Exhibit A of the resisting arrest charges that were fabricated by the El Dorado County Sheriff, Pollock Pines Community Church, and the California Department of Corrections. And we were hurt. They pulled a firearm out and threatened to murder my wife in front of me. She wasn't doing anything wrong. And the jurors simply found me and my wife not guilty on the charges. I was kidnapped. I was put into bondage in their jail. I received oppression of a prisoner. I was in a unit where everybody in there, excluding one other person, was being disciplined from in-house violations. We've been sent President Obama 3 telegrams he ignored. We've been sent, went to the governor of California twice and filled out his forms for requests for interviews about what his officers are doing. 2 times we've been to interviews in the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Sacramento in their office. And when El Dorado County Sheriff Deputy Brown sexually assaulted my wife on 2 patrol car cameras and audio and the park and ride camera in front of me, they called us in both as unidentified dead before they arrived and sexually assaulted her. We believe in hopes that I would protect her and they were going to execute us. And we didn't do that. We went and told on them. And they called us in as unidentified dead later that day as they stalked us around and kept trying to do stuff to us. And we went immediately to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And when we drove there, we were stopped by the Federal Bureau of Investigation's officer out front, their guard. And he smirked and smiled at us and said, "You two aren't allowed to come in here. You guys aren't allowed here to come in here. You can't come in here." And they refused to let us go report the sexual assault, which was on camera. It was a matter of a court process on the fabricated case under Exhibit A, and Judge Wagner in El Dorado County suppressed the evidence on record. And it was said that the satellite transmissions for that, they save them for 2 years and then they get rid of them. We believe they suppress those to wait for the 2-year mark so they can get rid of them. And these things are happening in the United States. My wife wasn't on probation or parole or anything like that when they were hurting her. I'm not on parole or probation or anything like that today. But she was never on parole, my wife, you know, and they did these things. The head of these crimes at their peak was California Department of Corrections agents Wiener, DeRocco, and De La Cruz. And they just get to simply run around free. They were trying to prove that they were needed because at the time the federal judge was threatening to shut down all the parole offices in California and get rid of parole. So the judge ended up shutting down a whole bunch of parole offices, releasing inmates, taking a whole bunch of people off of parole that were not convicted of violent offenses. And these agents and sheriffs and their associates ran around and were trying to prove, we believe, to society that they were needed, and they just harassed us and hurt us. And at that time I was on parole for almost about 2 years, and I didn't have a 1 parole violation, no dirty narcotics test. I was in prison for stealing a computer at gunpoint, not narcotics. And all of a sudden I'm this big giant problem, even though I was a perfect parolee at the time. and they destroyed my family and try to act like we destroyed our family. And this harm continues on today. It's ongoing everywhere we go. The Federal Bureau of Investigations followed us around about 2/3 of the United States of America, and we think it's Americans' duty to step in and not let their government do this. So now we're asking the federal judge to make the wrong right, which is in their law books, that he has that power. And hope that he's not also a part of this, and I believe he's not at this time, you know. So this is happening in the United States of America. We're living proof of that. Yeah, well, you know, we're living proof of that, and we could prove with these documents, if they let us do these, we can prove that these government people are treating their citizens like us with acts of terrorism and torture. They've been doing it for a long time, and they're putting their citizens like me, they're attempting to put me in prison for 8 years, my wife for 1 year on a made-up case. Once you go to prison, they force you to work for them or they discipline you. It's lawful under the 13th Amendment in the United States if you're duly convicted of a crime, but when they're making crimes up that didn't happen and they're forcing you to work for the 8 years for them, that's slavery. And the United States is involved in slavery. And I know for a fact in the state of California, the California Department of Corrections is involved in slavery, and I could prove it if this judge lets me prove it.